never even heard of the book. And Dino called me and said, "Do you know about this book?" And I said, "No, I never heard of it." And I thought he said June instead of Dune. And so I read it, and I had a meeting with Dino, and I liked him right away. I didn't know if I would like Dino, and I loved the book, and so we, started working together. But his daughter, Rafaela, was the producer, and she was fantastic, and she did a fantastic job of putting together a giant machine. We had, at one point, 1,700 people on the crew, building and doing all sorts of things. It's been very strange for me because these jumps from Eraserhead to Elephant Man to Dune are huge leaps. But Dune was a picture that took this much money, and so I never saw this money, and I just treated it as a normal picture. And it took 3.5 years to do it, working 6 days a week, but still the process of making the film is the same, tuning into this material and getting it somehow onto the screen. I didn't read science fiction, and Dune is a strange science fiction because it has other things woven into it. It's not what you would call like just a space hardware science fiction picture. When you sort of try to tune into the material, you sort of feel what this essence is, and in Dune some things could fall away, and I still felt that it was still saying Dune, and other things had to stay because if they went away it wouldn't say Dune. And so I just tried to tune into the material and be true to the book and get it down to a realistic length. It took a long time. It was a 1.5 years working on the script, and then many rewrites in the middle of shooting to make things more understandable. And I was always finding these little pieces of this puzzle. Suddenly I'd realize some part was missing and have to fix something. We went everywhere trying to find these people that would be these characters, and it didn't matter if they were had names or if they were totally unknown. We kind of were able to find them here and there, and find unknowns or people with names. It's hard to find someone who has certain qualities in one person, and those qualities are a quality of innocence, a quality of strength, and that could go into leadership, a quality of intelligence in the eyes, and a sort of a spiritual quality on top of that. And it sounds like there'd be many people that maybe could do this, but we never found it all in one person that way. Everybody in the film working with him said that Kyle is a natural, and he is a very good actor, and they respected him a lot because of his attitude and his seriousness about the whole thing. He'd never even seen a camera before, and we did a screen test. Was the first time he had ever been in front of a camera. I didn't want Sting because he was a rock star, and then I saw him in a film called Brimstone and Treacle, which I don't think has come to France, but it's a British picture, and I saw him, and I saw this, I said, he's got to be, he's perfect for this character. And now in many places in the world, people think Sting is almost the star of Dune, because during the time of Dune, he became a superstar. And now everybody puts pictures out with him, but then they become crazy because he's only got a small part in the picture. But he does a great job, and he was super to work with, but he's not the star of Dune. I felt in Mexico City that I was in a strange world and I was in a foreign, place. And when I'd finished shooting at night, I'd come home, but I was still never in a normal world. And it was a dream city. It was a romantic city. It had strange architecture. It had this mood to it. And it helped me a lot, always staying in this mood of Dune. David Paich of Toto came down to Mexico and I talked with him, and when you're sitting with someone talking to them, you start seeing things. And in David Paich I saw lots and lots of music that he wanted to make that wasn't like Toto's music. And he's really a genius. He's got tremendous talent, musical talent that is never used, and many musicians I know are like this. They get into one sort of thing, but inside them is other things that wants to come out. And so he got a chance to do lots of different things. And then Brian Eno wrote a beautiful piece. So many of the scenes involved special effects, optical effects, and those sequences were storyboarded. But I hate storyboards because once you draw them, they want you to be locked into them, and you take them all apart, and you now start directing pieces of a picture. And then at the very end, all these pieces are supposed to fit together, but it's very frustrating because maybe somewhere in the middle you want to change some of these pieces. And I was lucky really because a lot of experts were with me, and they would say, yes, you can do this, we'll make it work, and you can change this and we'll make it work. But if they hadn't been there, I might have been locked into these things, and there's no room for change. And I like to plan things, but when you're working, suddenly you get a new idea. It's good to be able to do it, or you become crazy.
Some of the special effects and so forth got very cheap. They ran out of money, and no, in a lot of those cases, he didn't get what he wanted, and they just didn't have the money for it. I mean, there are descriptions in the screenplay of folding space, which are just gorgeous, and I know he would have loved to have done. And had the film been done a few years later, he could have had, and they would have been gorgeous.
David directs for different people in different ways. For me, it had a lot to do with imagery. He'd say more like a wind, or he'd say think about Elvis. Or he'd say, sometimes nothing at all. There'd just be a moment, pause, and we'd sort of stare at the ground together and look at each other and sort of nod. And he loves to direct from behind the camera, so you'll hear his voice from time to time, which is fun because then it becomes a challenge: is who can make who laugh first. So he laughs and sometimes ruins the take, and sometimes he'll get me. That was just the friendly process.
Dino. Somehow in Dino's mind put the Elephant Man together with Dune, and he called me and asked me if I would read this book. I wasn't 100%. I don't know quite how that happened. That's my one, in my mind, big failure. And but I learned a tremendous amount on that film. I love Dino. I love his daughter Rafaela. I love the cast and crew, and I loved Mexico City. I was down there for a year and a half. Dune took 3 years to make, start to finish, but it was a nightmare. And it was a nightmare. Talks about things, many crews, lots of things going on at the same time, and it was a big production. That principal photography lasted 6 months, and models, miniatures, special effects photography lasted another 6 months. So I didn't have final cut on that film. So I didn't have final cut on The Elephant Man either, but Mel, in effect, gave it to me. And so that's the big lesson. Don't make a film if it can't be the film you want to make. It's a joke, and a sick joke, and it'll kill you.
Dragon Micro-Budget Studios brings you a new concept in movie watching on the small screen, containing some of the world's most interesting films by cinema's biggest talent, which will be shown and added to on a monthly basis. As a subscriber, you will be able to receive free stuff and learn from the various tutorials and equipment reviews that will be uploaded at Dragon.
Wow!